Uh-oh, Hexeth might be in trouble. What was going on with that shooting in Washington, D.C.? Donald Trump's numbers are taking a hit. Will the Democrats pull off an upset in Tennessee? This and so much more. I'm Adam Kinzinger. I was a U.S. Congressman for 12 years, an Air Force pilot for 22, and this is your Weekend Review. Now, before we get started, you might like this shirt. If you don't, you're wrong, but you should. This is Black Friday, and at wearthemoutproducts.com, we're having a Black Friday sale. So go take a look, wearthemoutproducts.com. This thing's available as well as your favorites like Democracy Hawk, Three Branches, No Kings, a whole bunch of other stuff. So go to wearthemoutproducts.com and get a nice little discount for Black Friday here. Let's first off talk about what's going on with Hexeth. So it came out recently, and I did a video about this, that Hexeth sent an order out that there will be no survivors on these boat strikes in the Caribbean, and then find out that they hit one boat. There were two survivors clinging on, and they got hit with a second strike because of Pete Hexeth's orders. Let me just say that unless there's something we're missing here, and there could be, but this sounds clearly like, dare I say it, a war crime. Uh, when it comes to the military, both the law of armed conflict as well as the maritime law, if you have somebody that is a non-combatant, so if they're injured and they don't pose a threat, they don't become a legitimate target anymore. Now it's actually your responsibility to try to render them aid or rescue them, certainly not to follow up and kill them. The Senate Armed Services Committee says that they're very concerned with this as well. They're going to have some investigations. So who would bear responsibility? Not just Pete Hexeth, but the commander that ordered this. And in theory, those that actually carried out the strike, although I think the bulk of it will fall on the commander and theoretically Pete Hexeth. So we'll have to see what the Senate Armed Services comes up with it. This is a continuing to grow issue, massive concern, and something that we have to take very seriously as America, as the most powerful country in the world, the most powerful military. We have to hold ourselves to a different standard than what the terrorists do, because that is just the right thing to do. And I could go into 100 reasons why it benefits us, but it really does. Let's talk about this sad shooting in Washington, D.C. Two National Guardsmen were shot by what appears to be a former Afghan national who worked with U.S. forces. Unfortunately, one of the National Guard soldiers from West Virginia has died. She was 20 years old. The other remains in critical condition. This whole issue, the shooting, has reignited the debate over whether we should be deploying guard troops in U.S. cities. Is that wise? Is it dangerous? Obviously, the critics say that it's that's quote unquote crime fighting, puts soldiers at risk. Supporters argue that it's necessary for public safety. The reality is, when it comes to deploying military, we need to do that very judiciously, very carefully, only when necessary, particularly the National Guard. But unfortunately, just putting people in this position and making them a target is the wrong thing to do. And I think that Donald Trump has to accept that, needs to be held accountable for that. But regardless, we do wish the surviving DC or West Virginia soldier, we wish him a speedy recovery. We pray for him. We pray for the family of the young lady that was killed. It's terrible. There's never an excuse for it. And it's awful. As a result of this, Trump administration has basically announced that they've halted all of these asylum decisions after that soldier was shot. They blame that on the Afghan national. The USCIS ordered officers to pause approvals or denials of these different applications while vetting procedures are reviewed. They want to make sure that they're bringing the right people in. Trump also vowed to, quote, permanently pause migration from what he called third world countries. He vowed to expand deportations, to re-examine green cards from 19 different nations, and to end federal benefits for non-citizens. This has been criticized by the UN, immigration advocates, and others. This appears to be what he's trying to do, is in essence taking a situation that's tragic, and he's overreacting to it for his agenda. His agenda has always been more and more deportations, and particularly of places where they aren't white. And I think you're seeing that right now, and he's unfortunately using this tragic situation to accelerate this, including his announcement that he was sending 500 more troops into Washington, D.C. Again, all of this could be prevented and should have been, but we have a president that really doesn't care. And he only cares about what his agenda is and how it affects him. We also found out that ICE placed a record number of kids into federal shelters this year, up to 600 children. That's the most since tracking began. Many of those were separated from their families, not at the border necessarily, but inside the United States, whether it's a traffic stop, other routine encounters. Legal advocates actually argue that this amounts to a new wave of family separations. If you remember in the first administration, Trump administration, that was a big deal. Causes trauma to children. It's separating them from their homes, schools, and communities. This is the stuff where you hear about, like, the mom that was in line to pick up her child, and ICE came and pulled her out of her car and arrested her in front of her child. Well, then they have to take that child somewhere, and they've been putting them in these facilities, and up to 600 of them. What that shows is a complete insanity in the deportation process. Look, you have to obey the laws of this country, but I think as a country, we need to be a little more compassionate. I've often said that people that are here illegally should be legalized, not made a citizen, but legalized, and then put in the back of the line to apply for citizenship. The vast majority of Americans agree with that. Now, let's talk about something else weird that Donald Trump did, because there's plenty of them, as always. He announced that he's going to pardon Juan Orlando Hernandez, who was the former president of Honduras. He's currently serving a 45-year sentence in a U.S. facility for drug trafficking and for weapons charges. He was convicted last year for helping to facilitate massive cocaine shipments to the United States. Trump called the conviction harsh and unfair, and he made the pardon announcement very recently, just days before Honduras' upcoming presidential election. Now, this is a guy that's getting ready, which we'll talk about, to at least pretend like he's going to take action against Venezuela on the ground. Certainly is attacking what he's calling drug boats because of the poison he claims that drugs are. And yet he's getting ready and has pardoned one of the biggest drug traffickers to the United States. Go figure. The only thing I can figure is something is in it for Donald Trump. There's always something in it for Donald Trump. So let's figure out what that something is, and then we'll have our answer. Speaking of Venezuela, President Trump said that very soon the U.S. is going to take action on land against what he's calling the Venezuelan drug traffickers. This is after all these maritime strikes. He claimed that the drug traffickers have shifted away from sea routes and have warned them to stop sending poison. This follows, by the way, the deployment of the USS Gerald Ford, which is a huge aircraft carrier, and a bunch of Marines and a bunch of stealth jets. Let me just say this. The forces that we have in the Caribbean right now, supposedly to deal with this drug thing, is not the forces you put in place to deal with drugs. It's the force you put in place to attack a military or to overthrow a government. So what is really going to happen here? We don't know. I still tend to think Donald Trump is all bluster, but I'm just that's a gut reaction. It's not anything I necessarily know. They very well may attack and try to either kill Maduro, overthrow Maduro, and bring in the opposition or something along that line. We'll have to wait and see what ends up happening. Donald Trump had a conversation with Maduro, the illegitimate president of Venezuela, and I think they're trying to get him to leave office, which, by the way, let me just say would be a great thing if Maduro left office. But I also think we have to be very careful when we're attacking countries, to do it the right way, to know what the end game is, and to make sure we have the full buy-in of Congress and other people. Let's shift from what's potentially going to happen in Venezuela to what's going on in Ukraine. Massive attacks against Ukraine continue by Russia. The Trump administration continues to try to force a terrible deal down Ukraine's throat when Ukraine is actually winning this fight. As of yesterday, Russia, in one attack, sent like 500 or 600 both drones and missiles into Ukraine to try to just kill innocent people. That's the biggest thing, is Russia just attacks innocent people. Ukraine, when they fire into Russia, they go after legitimate energy sources or military things in Russia. And it just goes to show the difference in who values human life. Ukraine continues to fight valiantly and they need our support. But there is a corruption scandal that's broken in Ukraine. And let's keep in mind, there is some corruption in Ukraine. There's way more corruption in Russia, by the way. And I would even argue there's a ton of corruption right now in the United States with Donald Trump creating fake cryptocurrencies and everything else. Well, this corruption scandal has led to Andrei Yermak, the chief of staff to Vladimir Zelensky, resigning. There was a major anti-corruption raid that targeted his office. So the question will be now is, what does Zelensky do in reaction? Does he shake up the government, make sure that they're rooting out corruption? Does he try to protect his friends? This is a big question, and it's very important for winning over the people of Ukraine to have them continue to buy into Zelensky's leadership, because it's really important for them in the time of war to believe in the leader of the country. So continue to watch that. And also, by the way, remember that fake agency Doge that was going around destroying everything, including USAID, which is so very important? Well, Doge is closed, no longer exists. That's right. Many of the functions of Doge have been pulled into the Office of Personnel Management, but they've shut it down 8 months before its charter ran out. So there you go. Doge is over. Sorry, Elon, but now that you have $1 trillion, you probably don't care. There's a special election in Tennessee coming up on December 2nd. Now, here's an interesting thing. This is a district that it's replacing a representative who resigned, Mark Green. It's a very Republican district, probably 30-point Republican district. But a recent poll shows that the Republican is only leading the Democrat by 2%. Now, I don't expect the Democrat to win this election. I think that's a huge, like, bridge too far. But if it's within 2 points, even up to 10 points, that will send chills down Republican spine, because this is a district that shouldn't even be on the radar. Should be a 30-point Republican win. And so it shows that there's a lot more energy with the Democrats than the Republicans, which bodes very powerfully for next November as the midterm elections come up. So let's continue to watch what's going on there. And lastly, I want to talk about Donald Trump's health. Okay, this is a guy that all through Joe Biden's time as president, Donald Trump kept talking about Joe Biden's health and his mental acuity and said he was tired, and we know how Donald Trump is. Well, now Donald Trump is facing that. He's been falling asleep. They've cut his appearances by roughly 39% compared with his first term. He doesn't start his day till noon. And he's been doing a lot of weird, crazy old man things and calling a reporter piggy, calling one other woman ugly. There's like this anger that's welling up that you remember from an angry grandfather that's losing his mind. That's Donald Trump now. So the question is he losing his mind? Is he just angry about what's happened with the Epstein files? And is this going to continue to grow and explode? And I think it's fair game. He made Joe Biden's mental acuity fair game. So this is fair game for Donald Trump. What's going on? Something's weird. We need to know. So let's continue to watch that and see what happens. Maybe every week when I'm here talking to you, we're going to keep the tabs on this, and maybe he's going to get crazier and crazier and crazier. So anyway, take a look at all the other videos. We've got the one that I put up about Pete Hegseth and that strike if you want to go into more details about that. Again, remember to check out wearthemoutproducts.com. A lot of cool stuff you will like. You want to make sure that your uncle's MAGA hat doesn't go unchallenged, and we've got a way to do that. So everybody, thanks for paying attention. Have a great one. Be sure to hit like and subscribe to the channel. We'll catch you next time.